What's up, everyone? Oreo here, and today going to take a look at the Twilight Masquerade set now that some time has passed since it actually came out, and going to do a little analysis on whether or not now is a good time to invest in any of the booster box products for this set. So let's take a look together. And our big question in this video is now a good time to buy for an investment? Should you hold off or should you avoid it altogether? That's what we're going to kind of focus on here. And just to kind of show us where is the current price sitting at on a booster box. And when I pull up eBay, I'm just looking at the most not just the cheapest listing available, but from a reputable buyer as well. So I avoid anything that could be, a couple dollars under some of the values you see here, but might be from, a seller that only has a few ratings. That to me is not something you want to really click on. Not when you're making an expensive purchase like this for $100. So right now, getting it from a reputable seller is hovering around this range right here. Free shipping at 100 plus 100, we'll call it 101. So $101. Typically the common wisdom is that if you can get a booster box for any set for sub 100, around that $90 range, that's probably a pretty good buy. But I like to be a little more conservative than that and get some, sure value out of what I'm purchasing. I don't want to end up, holding the bag or something on like the Obsidian Flame set, for example. So that's kind of what you're looking at right there. If you were to buy in right now in early June on Twilight Masquerade. Here are some of the pull rates just to kind of bring it up to give you some idea of what you're looking at on there, and it's really nothing atypical. These special illustration rare pulls, illustration rares, kind of following the same formula as temporal forces. 1 in 86 special rares and 1 in 13. If you go to temporal forces, as you can see here, it's basically about the same. 1 in 86, 1 in 13. It's the exact same. So pull rates, they're okay. They're not like amazing, but they're certainly not as, like, let's say, scary bad as Sword and Shield was. But what I want to focus here on before I get to my answer on whether or not this is a good purchase right now for an investment, take a look at where Paldea Evolved is right now. Other than 151, which is commonly agreed to be the best set in Scarlet and Violet right now, Paldea Evolved here is kind of the big darling set. It's kind of the one that's going up, 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 up. But yet, even though Paldea Evolved is probably like agreed to be the current best set to invest in, other than say 151, it's not so expensive that you missed out if you didn't get in at the beginning. So what do I mean by that? Paldea Evolved came out almost a year ago today, give or take a few days. Yet right now, the cheapest priced I can find, with keeping in mind them coming from very, very reputable sellers, is about 130. So getting this at 130 a year after, when it's certainly on the rise and gaining in popularity for investing, is incredibly good value. That gives you a nice safety net to fall back on if something were to go sour. So what I'm saying is on a set like Paldea Evolved, if you could have gotten it at sub $100, so let's say $90, $95 after all fees and shipping, yeah, you obviously did really well, because a year later, it's already appreciated 30, 40 bucks from your initial investment, and it's certainly only going to climb from there over the following years. But that's still not so cost prohibitive that you couldn't still buy in right now. And if you take a look at where Twilight Masquerade is currently sitting at that $100 mark on eBay for a box after fees, that certainly makes it very approachable as well, but does not make it something that you need to buy in right now. Just like Paldea Evolved did not come off as the super popular, beloved, darling set when it first came out a year ago. In fact, based on my impressions and talking and doing a lot of research on it with a lot of people, like, this set was not looked upon with any, special significance when it first came out. And only really over the last few months has a lot of focus going on to how good it is. And yet it's only appreciated like 30 to 40 bucks in a year. So that is a nice little gain for those who jumped in right at the beginning, but isn't so cost prohibitive that it doesn't allow someone to jump in as a nice entry point for it right now. So if I compare that to Twilight Masquerade and I say, hey, take a look at where these values are right now. There's some really heavy hitting cards right here. Yes, it is incredibly early. Twilight Masquerade still only just came out. So this isn't an all definitive thing. I can't predict the future on these values. But when you already have some chase cards in that over 100, significantly over 100 range here for the Greninja, when pull rates aren't astronomically amazing, so they're not going to be handed out to everyone, and you get a bunch of good eclectic mix of cards here. You get a flagship and Ogerpon. You get some nice illustration rares that are certainly popular here. The Eevee, the Ursaluna might be a little undervalued. And you get these really awesome trainer cards here in Carmine and Perrin. I say that Masquerade, Twilight Masquerade is a very good set. I'd say it's like a solid B set right now, early on. You know, where it will be in a year from now, hard to say. But because Paldea Evolved is only climbed like $30 to $40, even in its popularity right now, I would definitively say that Twilight Masquerade is a certifiable hold off for now. I'm not saying you can't buy a box or two if you want to get in at this low price in the hope that it appreciates in the way that maybe Paldea Evolved is, and you come back in a year and say, oh, look, I already made 40, 50 bucks, and it's obviously only going to climb for there. Yes, certainly that's possible. But if Paldea Evolved has only appreciated 30, 40, then Twilight Masquerade, which is probably a lesser set compared to Paldea Evolved, is most likely not going to appreciate much more than $30 or $40. So if you want to be more conservative, I would say you can hold off on buying this right now. You don't need to dive in at the $100 mark to get in on this product just yet. You can wait 3, 6, 9, 12 months, see where the price is at, see if it's appreciated at all. If a lot of popularity is gaining on it for whatever reason, the same way that it has for Paldea Evolved, that's kind of the best example I can give you, then you can buy in, and maybe at that point it'll be at like 110, 120, but you won't really miss out on much. And likewise, if you invest in now, you may not necessarily make as much of a profit if Paldea Evolved, for example, has only appreciated an incremental amount. So all of this is to say that Twilight Masquerade is probably a solid B. That's probably the rating I would give it. But you don't need to buy right now. You don't need to jump on it right now and get in before it jumps up, right? Could this turn into a Fusion Strike where seemingly overnight it jumped up 50, 100 bucks, and now it's, what is it, in the low to mid 200 range for booster box? It's very unlikely that this set is going to jump like that. But then again, that set obviously has the Gengar that everyone, I don't know, at some point realized they love it when initially it wasn't so beloved, which is kind of like what happened with the Magikarp. But you can safely take a little more time, be more conservative with your investment on this Twilight Masquerade set, and don't need to feel like, oh, goodness, I need to jump in this right now. It's going to go off and rocket sometime soon. Well, it didn't happen for Paldea Evolved. The Paldea Evolved is at least one or the second best set in Scarlet and Violet right now. Okay, so we take a look right here on TCG Player just to get an idea of where some of the values are for the cards, and there are very, very big values so far, which is not that out of the norm. If you take a look here at the big chase card, that Greninja doing really amazing right now, shooting at that 170, 180 plus range in value, got that super, super chase card, really popular right now, this card. Which is kind of interesting because I don't necessarily see a lot of people saying they love it, that it's, it's not like a Moonbryon, but it's got, I don't know, it's got a lot of pizzazz going on for people who are chasing it. And not just that, you got some of the other really popular special illustration trainer cards right here. You have the Carmine right here and the Perrin. The Carmine card, pulling in at over 115 already. Perrin it is at almost 80. And then you get this nice card here, which I think is a little low for it, the Blood Moon Ursaluna. And it's interesting because look how much its value is actually like cratering for some reason, starting in that 90 plus range and really cratering downwards. Doesn't mean it can't rebound, and it doesn't really mean it's indicative of anything in particular, but just taking a look at where that market price is currently sitting for that card, just something to kind of, take note of. And scrolling down here, you see probably what is the other big hitter card, that illustration rare of the Eevee. Some people saying, could this possibly be another Magikarp situation? A really popular Pokemon, I guess, Nice card. Does it have some potential to kind of jump up over time? We're going to compare it to Paldia Evolved since that set did come out a year ago. So that'll give us something to look at. But taking a look at some of the other cards on here, you have a bunch of other miscellaneous things. The Putty Buddy Poffin sitting at about 40 bucks. But what I want to focus here on is the Ogerpon cards. And of course, this is the Ogerpon set. It's the flagship for Ogerpon. And regardless of how you feel, Ogerpon does have a pretty big impact on this set. And you get one here for 45, the Teal Mask. You get the Wellspring at 26. The hyper rare Teal Mask down here at 20, and it just kind of keeps going on from there. So you get a nice variety, a good eclectic mix of different Ogerpons with the different masks coming in at all different values currently. I go to the second page on here on TCG Player, and you kind of see more of the same thing. A bunch of the values kind of hovering around that $10 to $20 range, depending on what that card actually is. There's some interest here in this Chansey illustration rare card as well. It's got some good Pokemon there. Got Snorlax and Psyduck in the back, and the foreground right here for Psyduck, and maybe that one can pull up some value over time as well. But I always say this, that anytime you have a variety of cards at over $10 in value, like you have at least like a dozen or so, which is certainly the case right here, that's always a really good early sign. You're seeing it right here, Tatsugiri sitting at about 12 bucks. I think this is a great card. This is one of my favorites from the set. This is one that I'm sure could appreciate. It's kind of hovering around that $10 to $12 range, so that's not any heavy appreciation right now. But what you really like in a set like this is having a really good variety, not just the Ogerpon. You certainly get the Chase and the Greninja. You certainly get those popular trainer gals and the Carmine and the Perrin, but you're also getting a bunch of these item cards, trainer cards, other illustration rares. You get the Growlithe right here sitting at about 10, 11 bucks. You just kind of scroll down here, get some more of those illustration rares. Some of the ultra rares are kind of interesting, but nothing really big to focus on here in this video. But certainly a lot of potential in this set. So right now, bottom line is you are very safe to wait on Twilight Masquerade. Give it some time, see how the market goes. Maybe, as more supply comes out, maybe it's overlooked or underlooked, depending how you look at it. And maybe the prices actually drop, and then it drops sub $100. Right now, it's sitting in that $100 range, and if it was at like $90 after all fees and shipping, I'd say yeah, you could probably move on it, maybe get a few boxes or more, depending on how much you have to spend. But otherwise, yeah, I'd say it's safe to wait. It's not a set I would avoid, simply because it's got some of that really nice cards in it. The Greninja, the big trainer gals, etc., which I've gone over, ad nauseum by now, but certainly an opportunity to just wait a little bit of time, see how it continues to play out. For one, I think I bought like one booster box at a couple dollars under 100, and that's where I'm going to make my play right now. I'm just going to sit on it. Let's just see what happens first. I want to see how some of the other sets appreciate. If some of the other Scarlet and Violet sets don't appreciate much more, Temporal Forces, Paradox Rift, etc., then that might put a bigger focus on where the value actually is, which means something like a Twilight Masquerade and certainly a Paldia Evolved could gain greater appreciation as people look to spend money on wherever the value is, as opposed to just, holding off buying altogether. So that's my little video on here on where the value currently sits for Twilight Masquerade. But what do you think? Are you purchasing any? Have you decided, well, I'll hold off for now? That is certainly up to you. I do have some of the cards right here that I will show off. If you haven't gotten a chance to see them in person, they are really, really nice. You kind of see one right here. This is the this is the Teal Mask. Ogerpon right there, and I have also the Fire one as well right here, and these are pretty nice. I think they really pop in a nice light. Very collectible, especially when you get in a set, so you want all four. I think that certainly adds increased value to that as well. So as for me, I'm just going to hold on to my one booster box for now, see what happens, might revisit it back, let's say in 6 to 9 months, and if the price is at the same point, maybe I'll make a play then, but Kind of depends on what the other sets we have at that same point are going to be, and whether or not it makes sense to invest in those instead. So share your opinions on this set. Do you like it? Is it awesome? Is it terrible? Is it a good time to buy in now? Or do you agree that maybe hold off, be a little more conservative, and then revisit this again in the future? Do let me know in the comments, and I'm Elite for you. Take care, everyone.